The Weather Channel has been around since 1982, and over the years, many Penn State meteorology alums have appeared on the network. None of those on-air personalities has been there longer or done more reports from the field than Weather World alum Mike Seidel, who joined the Weather Channel in 1992 and joins us today. Welcome back,
John.
Mike.
Good to be here.
Good to see
I haven't
you.
been here since the infamous mid-October snowstorm in 2009.
It's been
was
quite
it?
a few years.
They pushed tailgating out to the parking lots and the streets.
You got to get back here more frequently.
I will do when I retire. It's not that far away.
Hey, you got your master's here at Penn State in the early 80s. Nobody's first on-air TV job is the Weather Channel. Briefly, take us through what got you there.
Yeah, my first job out of Penn State was in Greenville, South Carolina, and I worked at WYFF TV. I went there about 3 months after I left here. I was still writing my thesis, wrapping it up with Dr. Greg Forbes, who's now at the Weather Channel. He's been down there a good 15 or 16 years. And I was there 5 years, came back to Maryland, my home area, and that's when I got my job at the Weather Channel in 1992. I've been there 26 plus years, and I've been, my primary responsibility right now is the field coverage.
Right, now how did that all start? I mean, did somebody just come up to you one day and say, Mike, you're going to be our man for live shots?
It didn't really happen that way. I wanted to go out in the field and do live shots, and finally they gave me a chance back in 1996, Labor Day weekend, Hurricane Edouard, Cape Cod. So I started going out in the field, and we didn't go out as much then as we do now. In fact, we didn't cover our first winter storm, believe it or not, until January of 1996.
The big one.
The big one. And I didn't cover winter weather until 97, late 96, 97. So we started going out more and more, and I still started doing more and more live shots. And then about 7, 8 years ago, basically my entire responsibility was live coverage and not studio coverage.
And you've done 20,000 plus of these live shots. Do you pretty much always have your suitcase packed?
My suitcase is always packed, always ready to go, and folks always ask me, do they call you and you have to be on the road in 5 minutes? It usually doesn't work that way. Generally speaking, I know a day or two before, especially with hurricanes. Occasionally I'll get up in the morning and I'll get the text or email around 10 a.m. after the planning meeting and saying, hey, we need you to go here or here. But I generally have an idea. Now, some months I don't travel as much. This past February, I was out 23 days. So I was only home 5 days in February, and March wasn't much better. Remember, we had 4 nor'easters in 20 days, and so very exhausting. But now it's springtime. We get into a break, and then we'll see how the hurricane season ends up this year. Last year's hurricane season was very busy.
Yeah, most folks associate your live shots with extreme weather, but you've done plenty of assignments that don't involve hurricanes or severe weather. What were some of the funnest that you've been involved in?
Well, for 10 years, I did the NFL tailgates. So every Sunday, I was at an outdoor NFL venue from September till Super Bowl Sunday. That was a lot of fun because you hung out, you did some game forecast, you grilled out, hung out with the fans. And I did those from 2002 to 2012. I've also done stops on the PGA Tour. I've done Major League Baseball games, the All-Star game. I was at the World Series last fall in Los Angeles when they had the hottest World Series game ever in triple-digit heat.
We got to get you back here for a Penn State football game. What was it like to be the first U.S. meteorologist to report live from Cuba, which I guess you did covering a tropical storm in 2012?
Yeah, and I was back there year before last, back in the fall of 2016. Well, you know, I looked at it as an opportunity to cover weather in another country. I had actually been to Cuba personally one other time, so this was an interesting experience. I was in Havana on the Malecon, and luckily it turned out that the storm, which went between Cuba and the Florida Straits, through the Florida Straits, wasn't that bad, but it was an interesting experience. We actually had a satellite truck. There were only 2 in the country, and Mary Murray, who is the NBC bureau chief in Havana, has a lot
with a satellite
truck.
Well,
she has a lot of connections. She's been the bureau chief forever, and so we actually had a satellite truck, and I had spent 3 days there, and then I went back the fall before last for another hurricane we thought was going to come in and hit the eastern part of the island very hard, but it went between Cuba and Haiti, and fortunately where we were, it wasn't that bad.
What states have you not done a live shot in?
There's only 5 states. In fact, Fred Godomsky asked me this question a few years back on the phone one night, and we're thinking, hey, what states haven't you been live in? Well, the only 5 states I've not been live in: Vermont, Montana, Idaho, Hawaii, and Alaska.
Alaska, I kinda figured.
And Vermont is kind of how I've missed Vermont. I don't know. I just got New Hampshire a couple of years ago. Hopefully I'll get to Vermont, but Jim Cantori likes to go there so he can do his coverage and then go skiing.
Northeast.
And he's from Vermont.
Right.
So.
What's your philosophy in terms of risk? I mean, when do you say, I'm not doing this live shot?
Well, I try to never put myself in harm's way. There's always some risk available out there, but when it comes to hurricanes, you know, we get out there, and if it gets too dangerous, we can pull back. Hurricanes don't come in that fast, so you can make changes. You can pull back from the coast. The same snowstorms, really not much of an issue with snowstorms.
Right.
People ask me, what's the worst storm you've ever been in? What's the most danger you've ever been in? And the bottom line, anytime there's a threat of lightning. Because you're outside, you're just not quite sure. And I've had a couple of close calls, and it takes your breath away. But the other things, I lower the risk. Severe weather, hurricane, snowstorms, I lower my risk from coastal flooding, surge, and all the other issues. And I just try not to be, a cowboy. I'm just, because I got to keep the crew safe, myself safe. We all have families, and we need to broadcast.
Right. Mike Seidel, Weather World alum.
It's good to be back here in Happy Valley.
It really is good to see you, Mike. And we'll be back in a moment with a recap of the short range forecast.